Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Bisayototi. I welcome everybody back to my channel after a long period of time. This series is captioned Statistics Made Easy series, where I'll be taking you through how to simplify statistics. Basically, I say a big shout out to all my existing subscribers, and if you are new here, I say please kindly press the subscribe button and also turn on your notification button for you to know when new videos are being uploaded. Thank you. Today I'll be taking us through data classification and tabulation. Before we look at what tabulation is, we have to look at what classification is. And what is data classification? Data classification is the ability to group related facts together or into group. The best example, like I said earlier, is the example of a post office where you go to post a letter. By the time you get to the post office, the postman, what he does is to group all, let's say for example Nigeria, all the letters going to different states in Nigeria into different classes. So the one going to Oyo goes to Oyo, the one going to Ogun goes to Ogun, the one going to Kwara goes to Kwara. When the letter gets to Kwara post office, the postman in Kwara does a further classification into maybe the universities in Kwara or polytechnics or major centers in Kwara. So classification is the grouping of related facts into classes. We have something we call sub classification and cross classification, like I explained earlier on. Then what are the objectives of classification? Basically, I'll be mentioning two objectives. One, it facilitates comparison. Then secondly, it pinpoints the most significant feature of a data at a glance. Then it also simplifies mass volume of data, or mass of data rather. Then we'll also look at types of classification. What are the types of classification that we have? Basically, we have four types of classification. The first one is called geographical classification, and this type of classification is done according to locational differences. Enugu, Oyo, Port Harcourt, Kano, Katsina, and different, and like that. Then we also have chronological classification. Chronological classification is done over a period of time. It is a data that you have studied over a period of time. Let's say population growth rates or consumption pattern of a particular level or set of people. Then we also look at qualitative classification, that is based on some particular characteristics of an individual or a class. It could be sex, it could be color of the hair, literacy, religion, etc. and like that. Then we also look at quantitative classification. And what do we mean by quantitative classification? Quantitative classification refers to classification of data according to some characteristics that can be measured. But before we continue on quantitative characteristics, there are some important elements we need to know, and one of those important elements is called the variable. Then the second element we also need to know is the frequency. What is the variable? Variable are the elements attached to a particular class, and frequency are the number of time the variable appears in a particular class. Then there is something we also call discrete frequency distribution, where we simplify mass of data. Is the process of preparing this type of distribution is breaking down further mass of data into smaller bits. Then quantitative classification, these are referred to classification that are based on some characteristics that can be measured. Example, numbers of students in a particular class, or the weight of students in a particular class, or the height of students in a particular class. In this type of classification, there are two major elements. The first one is called the variable, and the second one is called frequency. When you say a variable is a frequency distribution that refers to the data classification based on some variables that can be measured. And what are variables? Variables refers to characteristics that varies in frequency distribution. They varies from time to time. Then a variable could be continuous or it could be discrete. When we say a discrete variable, it means something that is continuous over a period of time. When we say continuous variable, rather, it means something that is ongoing, that is continuous over a period of time. Then a discrete variable is that which can only vary or cannot manifest every conceivable fractional value. Then another important thing we need to know is how to form a discrete frequency distribution. How do we form them? Let's take for example the marks of a set of students in a particular class. Now we are looking at formation of discrete frequency distribution. And how do we do that? We want to form this into a frequency distribution. The first thing to know is to know the total number of students that we have. How many students do we have? We have 28 students, and the marks of these students is, the total mark is 40 marks. That is, each of these students, the first student has 10 marks over 40. The other student has 20 over 40, the third 20 over 40, the fourth 30 over 40, and like that. So we have to form it into a frequency distribution. And what do? The first thing is to write out the marks. Write out the marks. We write out the marks. After writing out the marks that we have, there's something we call tally. Then we put the tally. It means the signs. Tally. Then the last thing we write here is the frequency. The frequency, how many times of occurrence. How many times of occurrence. So if you look at the board, the smallest mark or the least mark that we have is 10. So I'm coming here to write 10. 10 is the smallest mark that we are having, or the least mark. So 10. If I look at the board, how many times has 10 occurred or appeared on the board? I come here and mark out 10. 1, that's the first time 10 is occurring. 2, I mark out 10. And third, I mark out 10. So 10 has appeared 3 times. So I come to tally. Tally is in Roman numeral. So I say 1, 2, 3. And come here to write in digits 3. How many times 10 has occurred? If I look at the board again to see what other mark is next to 10, next from the least to the highest, the next mark to 10, there is a mistake here. I think we have 8. I didn't check 8 before. Initially we have 8, we have 5, but I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to 10, and I'm going to change this to 18, so that I'm not going to clean the board. I'm changing this to 10, I'm changing this to 18. So 10 is now 4. 10 is 4, so I'm cleaning this frequency to be 4. I'm cleaning this frequency to be 4. Then the next value we have that is small is next to 10 is 15. How many times has 15 occurred? 1 and 2. I think I can only see 2 places 15 and as occurred. So I come here 1, 2, and I write 2 here for 15. Then the next value is 18. 18 has occurred only once. So I come here and write 18 and put 1 and put 1. 1, it has occurred only once. Then after 18, the next value I'm seeing is 20. The next value I'm seeing is 20. So I'm coming here to write 20. 20 has occurred how many times? 1, 2, let's see, 20, 20, 2, 2. 20 has occurred only twice. So I come here and write 1, 2, and come here and put 2. Then the next value to 20. This is another 20 that I didn't mark earlier on. This is another 20 that I didn't mark. So 20 is 3, 20 is 3. 20. We have to check properly so that we don't mistake, and that is why I'm cancelling the values that I've marked out. Then the next value after 20 is 22. If I check properly, is 22. So I come here and write out 22. 22. How many times has 22 occurred? The first one is 1, 22. We check properly. 2, 22. We check properly. 3, 22. We check properly. 4, 22, we check properly. 5, 22, we check properly. Then 6, 22 has occurred 6 times. So I come here and write 1, 2, 3, 4. When it comes to the 5th mark or the 5th line, we bring it across it and write the 6th one beside it. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then I come here and write 6. Then the next value after 20 is 25. The next value after 20 is 25. So I come here and write 25. I come here and write 25. So how many times has 25 occurred? This is the first 25 I'm seeing. 25, 2, 3, 25, 3. 25 has occurred 3 times. So I come here 1, 2, 3 and write 3 here. Then the next one after 25, I can see 30, I can see 27, 28. So the next one is 27. The next one is 27, 28. So after 30, we have 27. How many times has 27 occurred? Just 1. So I write 1 here. How many times has 28 occurred? Just once. So I write 1 here and write 1 here. Then the next one after 28 is 30. I have 30 here. I have 30. How many times has 30 occurred? Once. I can only see only 130. 2, 30, 3. I can see 30 has occurred twice. So I write 1, 2, 3 and come here and put 3. Then the next value after 30 is what? The next value after 30. The next value after 30. Looking at the board properly is 32. The next value after 30 is 32. So I come here. How many times has 32 occurred? 1 and 2. So I come here and write 32. I come here and write 32. How many times has it occurred? Twice. Then the last value that is still on this board that I have not marked out is 35. If you look at it properly. So I come here to the last value and write 35. 35. How many times has 35 occurred? 1 and 2. Twice. If you check properly, we have marked out all the values on the board. So we come here and say 35 occurred twice. So we say 1, 2 and come here and write 2. What is the total value of numbers here? We want to see if we are right because we said 28 students. So let's see if our total frequency is equal to 28 or lesser than 28. 4 plus 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. Plus 3 is 10. Plus 6 is 16. Plus 4 is 20. Then plus 4 is 24. Plus 4 is 28. So it means the total number of students that did the test are 28 students. So it means this is the way to form our frequency distribution. Thank you. Now we'll continue. The next thing we'll be looking at is called classification according to class intervals, and we'll be looking at class limits, we'll be looking at class intervals, we'll be looking at class frequency, then we'll also look at class midpoint. What are class limits? Class limits are the lowest value and the highest value that can be included in a particular class. The lowest value and the highest value that can be included in a particular class. Don't forget that we started with classification and we said it is grouping of related facts into classes. Then another thing to know is called class intervals. And what are class intervals? Class intervals are the differences between the upper class limit and the lower class limit. What are the upper class limits? The upper class limits are the highest value that can be included in a particular class. And what are the lower class limit? Are the lowest value that can be included in that particular class. Then we have class frequency. The class frequency are the number of observations attached to that particular class. Then we also have class midpoint. What are class midpoint? Class midpoint is the addition of the upper class limit and the lower class limit divided by 2. I'll do a quick analysis of everything I've said now so that we'll have a better understanding of it. Explaining what the class limits, class intervals, class frequency and class midpoints are. I'll take an example with this to explain what these 4 variables or what the 4 points are. The first one I listed on the board is called class limits. What are class limits? Class limits are called is called the highest or the lowest or the highest value in that particular class. The highest and the lowest value in that particular class. The class intervals is the differences or the difference between the highest and the lowest value of that class. We call the lowest value the lower class limit, and we call the upper value the upper class limit. The small value is called lower class interval or lower class limits. It means the lowest or the least value in that particular class. If you look at the board, this is class 1, this is class 2, and this is class 3. They are different classes. So if I'm asking what is the class limit of class 1, the class limit of class 1, the lower class limit of class 1 is 0, and the upper class limit of class 1 is 10. For class 2, the lower class limit of class 2 is 10, and the upper class limit of class 2 is 20. For class 3, the lower class limit of class 3 is 20, and the upper class limit of class 3 is 30. Then what are class intervals? Class intervals is the difference between the upper class limit and the lower class limit. If I'm asking for the class interval of this will be 10 minus 0, which will give us 10. This will be 20 minus 10, it will give us 10. This will give us what? 30 minus 20. Those are the class intervals, the differences between the upper class limit and the lower class limit. What is the class frequency? Class frequency is the number of occurrence that the number of occurrence attached to each of the classes, or the number of observations attached to each of the classes. Then what are called class midpoint. Class midpoint is adding up the upper class interval plus the lower class interval divided by 2. That is, if I'm to get the midpoint of this, we'll say 10 plus 0 divided by 2. That will give us what? 5. That the class midpoint for class 1 is 5. If I want to look at the class midpoint for class 2, it will give us what? 20 plus 10 divided by 2, and that is what? 30 over 2, and that is what? 15. Thank you. Now we'll be looking at methods of classifying data according to class intervals. Basically, there are two methods. And the first method is called exclusive method, and this method is when the class intervals are so fixed that the upper class interval of a particular class is the lower class interval of the next class. And the inclusive method is when the upper class interval of that class is included in that class itself. I would quickly run through an example. Let's look at an example of in exclusive, and in reality we make use of exclusive. Let's take, for example, the numbers of students. We have numbers of students, continuous or max. We can say numbers. We say 0 to 10, 10 to 20. Sorry, for a clearer view, 0 to 10, we say 10 to 20, then 20 to 30. And we have the max, we have the frequency, and the frequency. Let's assume we have 5, we have 6, and we have 2. It means for the total number of students that attended this class is 5 plus 6, that is 11, plus 2, that is 13. This means that between the marks of 0 to 10, we have 5 people have between the mark of 0 to 10, 6 people have between 10 to 20, and 2 people got between 20 to 30. If you ask me what is the lower class interval of this class, it is 0. The lower class interval of this class is 0. And what is the upper class interval of this class? The upper class interval of this class is 10. Then what do you mean? If it means that on this frequency, 10 is part of this class. These class intervals are so fixed that 10 becomes a part of this class. But let's take, for example, we have said numbers of marks. We have 10, we have 20, we have 30, we have 40, we have 50, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9. We want to classify into this class, for example. How do we count? Between 0 and 10, let's see. This is the first value, is between 0 and 10. This is the second value, making 2, is between 0 and 10. This is the third value, between 0 and 10, making 3. This is the fourth value, between 0 and 10, making 4. This is the fifth value, between 0 and 10, making 5. 10 is not to be counted in this class. 10 will be counted in the next class. 20 is not counted in this class. It will be counted in this class. 30 will not be counted in this class, but it will be counted in the next class. Then exclusive. What is inclusive? It means that the upper class limit of that class is included in that class itself. The upper class limit is included in that class itself. We said exclusive. For exclusive, the class intervals are so fixed that the upper class interval of that class becomes the lower class interval of the next class. But for inclusive, we said the upper class limit interval of a particular class is part of that class. So for inclusive now, we say 0 to 9. For exclusive, we have said 0 to 10. But for inclusive, we say 0 to 9. Then we say 10 to 19. We say 20 to 29. It means 9 is included in this class itself, and 19 is included in this class. 29 is included in this class. What we have written before, we say 5, we say 6, and we say so. Total number of students are what, 13. Thank you.